It was the age or the time when women were emerging as a force, and the political climate was equal pay for equal work.
It was in the 70s, and it was a time when I think most people weren't prepared to talk about this.
Women who were sexually abused or who were raped were sent to the morgue to be examined by the physician there. This was not right socially. It was not acceptable.
You're overwhelmed. You're overwhelmed with the emotions, the trauma. You're overwhelmed with anger, with fear, with self-blame, worrying about people if they're going to judge you. And the judgment was big.
My husband was really quite modern. He was in obstetrics and gynecology. He dealt with women. He was also chief of staff at Kapiolani Hospital. At that time, it was known as the Kapiolani Women's Hospital. He felt strongly that women should, under these circumstances, receive all the care possible. So he chatted with Richard Davy, who was then CEO and administrator of Kapiolani Hospital. And the two men got together and decided that they would open an entity within the hospital known as the Sex Abuse Center. It was really two people who were men who really got this thing started.
In the early days before the Sex Abuse Treatment Center, if you wanted evidence collection, you had to go to the city morgue for that. If you wanted any kind of medical care, because you're concerned about sexually transmitted infections, pregnancy, other things, then you had to go see a private practitioner. There was not that one central place to get care.
So then the problem was money. How are we going to fund this thing? That's when I came into the picture. It was the easiest thing to sell to my fellow colleagues. All I had to do was point out that if the abused or the assaulted were your daughter, your mother, your aunt, your cousin, would you want that person to go to the morgue to be examined? And they would say, absolutely not. Then I said, sign here. And so we included it in the budget, and that's how the Sex Abuse Center was created.
The core, and I think the number one thing, what makes SATC very, very different, is we provide really good quality emotional care.
So many people stay silent when they've experienced violence because they feel ashamed and they don't know who to go to. And they're afraid that they won't be believed. And I think just to get someone who acknowledges where they've been and what they've been through is absolutely critical.
When survivors come in, they're afraid. Am I going to get pregnant? Am I going to be at risk for HIV? And then in that process, you help them to understand at the same time we're going to collect evidence, and that evidence will be part of your case and part of this examination. But this exam really is about good medical care. You have to take that victim-centered approach, which is the victim is at the center of everything. So there is always a crisis worker present, always. It was an absolutely new approach. You have to bring together the medical community, the police, the prosecutors, hospitals. You've got to get a team of people who are really trained and trained well to deal with trauma, and you've got to get them all working together for the survivor. We knew that we could expand services for them. We didn't want to just stay, I think, focused on providing victim services. We wanted to have a role in preventing sex assault.
You know, when it comes to prevention, partnerships are absolutely key because we cannot do this work alone. If you really want to prevent sexual violence, it takes a community. We also have a K through 12 sexual violence prevention curriculum that SATC developed with the Department of Education. And it's all age-appropriate lessons really focused on respecting boundaries. We've also trained over 800 educators statewide. One of them is the Honolulu Theater for Youth. We work with them on our Respect 2.0 program, which is kind of a cool multimedia, interactive, theatrical education. We get the class to engage in discussion, like, okay, what is going on here? And do you think this is a healthy way to start a relationship? And really getting them to think critically about situations that they see fairly often.
That's why we love partnerships. I mean, 'cause that's what it's all about. This is about a community response to a very sensitive issue. What's so special about working at SATC is you've got a staff that is so passionate, so committed, and bright, and they are always thinking of things to make it better. They thought if we had a dog in the waiting room, then that will help survivors, maybe lessen their anxiety while they're even waiting. And we found an instructor who does our trauma-informed yoga. It's strengthening them and healing them in a different sort of way, so they're not just sitting, in that counseling office. And we have 24/7 hotlines throughout the state every single day. And in the, 34 years that I've been with the center, never once has that hotline gone down. That's a huge accomplishment.
I can't believe that it's been 40 years since I had this little part to play in the creation of this entity. Adriana Romelli, she can tell you more about the nuts and bolts and all of the difficulties and all of the help that she received to bring this sex abuse center to what it is today. I mean, all I did was help her get started, and I'm giving too much credit, really, but I'm proud of having been a part of it.